Around innovation entrepreneurship, there are challenges about the standard of education that the entrepreneurs have about how business really works. Most innovators come from academia, they come from within government, and they sometimes come from within corporates, but actually they have a relatively poor understanding of what the model for engagement with customers, engagement with investors, and those sorts of understanding are critical to business success. So helping them to get to grips with that better is going to be really important.
I believe is lack of strategy, overall encompassing strategy, and lack of governance. So we're doing strategy, execution, governance are the three areas we should be focusing on. There is no all-encompassing strategy. No one from government to policymakers to the industry have said this is what we want. And then there's lots and lots of execution, so it's almost like blindly deciding to go on a journey somewhere. So we have services, software, hardware, policy, academia, all doing wonderful things but with no common objective. And then the governance underneath it, there are small bits of governance, so we have some standards that we operate to, but nothing, again, all-encompassing. So you can't expect insurance to come in because they don't know what they're insuring against. You can't expect services companies to deliver something because there aren't any standards, they're trying to set their own. And we wouldn't have that in any other industry. So as soon as someone is willing, and someone being the government, but it has to be slightly depoliticised so it can be continuous, sets a strategy, we can continue to execute against that strategy and then feel comfortable that there is a governance process running underneath it.
We're at an early stage at the moment, so we heard yesterday that some of the, perhaps the market for cybersecurity products is not sufficiently developed, so people don't completely, people in industry, broadly speaking, don't fully appreciate some of the needs. So that's why we're seeing things like attacks such as TalkTalk, where actually it sounds as if basic cyber hygiene would have addressed their needs. But then there are other people who are sort of ahead of the curve, who are very well, following best practice and leading others. So I think, and then in my own sector, in academia, I think it's the same story. So I think there are some universities which are doing some great things around cyber innovation, but also in their teaching. And then other universities are still a little bit slower in catching up. So but that's improving because there are some levers which are being pulled on that encourage people to look at this area a little bit more, and I think we'll see more innovation following through, but it still feels to me like we're at quite an early stage.
We've done lots of grand challenge identification, so we know there's major challenges around trust, identity, privacy, security in its broadest context. But when you're here on tackling the topic of this particular meeting, which is about innovation, how do you get those ideas from, say, the academic base? When academics in the UK are very good at coming up with novel, stimulating and disruptive ideas. How do you get those actually to a company? And that's a problem. There aren't companies in the UK the size of Google, the unicorns, so-called unicorns. You just don't get them in the UK. So part of the thing we've been talking about over the last day or two is really how can you create more of an environment to get those companies created and then expand of a size so that you get the larger companies that we want to see in the UK.
The speed of change within the cybersecurity market is one particular area. The need for us to work collaboratively across groups, again highlighted by this event, is in my view essential. And bringing together the different concepts to ensure that we as a nation, as well as at other levels, remain competitive in the global marketplace. So in order to defend the realm, we need to be ahead and more innovative than our adversaries, and statistically at the moment we're probably slightly behind the curve in that in some respects.
Perhaps three of the main areas of challenges were funding, access to funding, both for small companies starting up, both within academia and also making your case for investment funding within a big company, lots of different competing interests there. So I think that was an area. Another area I think was for smaller companies and sort of spin-outs where perhaps some universities knowing how to access big providers who they could go to market through, and knowing how to get their stuff assessed by them and adopted. I think that was presented as another challenge. And then I think skills was another challenge. We've had a real problem with STEM uptake across the board for a number of years now in the UK. We've I think had a number of difficulties around making sure that our sort of master's courses reflect the whole sort of spectrum of cybersecurity skills and are linked into what industry needs. I think at the moment they're not, and there's some really great work that's been started now, but I think that will help as well. So I think those were the three areas: funding, sort of access to market and to channels to market.
I think we've covered off various around investment and trying to get investment into start-up companies and companies spinning out of universities, and the challenges around that is obviously difficult and continue to be difficult. But I think we've come up with some useful suggestions how we can combat that and improve the situation.